Hey everyone, welcome to Unfiltered Podcast, real conversations about church planting. My name is Stephenson, and I have the joy of serving Converge in the church planting movement.
My name is Parmelee, and I oversee church planting for Converge Mid-America. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about volunteering and giving, maybe kind of that next level, beyond just how things start out. And Lee, you're past that 1 year mark in your church plant now. So I'd love to even hear just a little bit of your experience. First of all, maybe even just saying where things are at. I mean, usually you have people that are kind of excited in the beginning. If you've kind of seen that maybe dip down, or how you kind of keep people engaged.
No, I appreciate it. I find in the church plant, where both church plants that I've done, maybe you found it as well, the early energy is what keeps you going that first year. Like, I didn't find it too difficult to get people from the launch team to serve and from the launch team to start giving. The challenge happens when you're about that year mark, and now you have a lot of new people, and your launch team hopefully is outnumbered by the number of new people that have come in and going, this is my church, but they still just sitting there and like to be comfortable, and they're not getting in the trenches. That's exactly kind of where we're at. When we hit that 1 year mark, we realized we started running some numbers. Majority of our giving was still coming through launch team members and maybe a few added families. And yet the size and the scope of our reach and impact was dramatically more than what our finances were keeping up with at that point. And then only 10% of our regular attenders were actually serving on a regular basis. The statistic is about 40% is what you want to aim for health, and making sure all the infrastructure and the foundation and programming can run and operate the way that they were meant to. It's going to take about that. And so we were dramatically behind where we needed to be in the grand scheme of things. But that's normal. And I think that's what I want church planners to understand. Like, that is fairly normal as you move beyond that launch phase of a church, and you're having to transition your people from launch team to now, what does it mean for us to be an actual church? And I think you've got a couple of things that come to my mind is you've got to create the opportunity. You've got to share the vision. And there's two ways to share the vision. Like, you can focus on need, or you can focus on the opportunity and greater impact. I would encourage any listener, if you're in that moment, like, don't go with the need. The challenge is, if you only focus on the need will always be there. And you may get people, serving for just a moment to fill that immediate need, but eventually you wear your people out because the need never actually gets dealt with. And it's like, yeah, this is a normal part. Every fall he has this need, and we just...
So you're saying they shouldn't be begging for children's ministry workers and just say, man, we're just so low. And if you love Jesus and you love children, you would at least sign up for this next month.
Exactly. And, this just even 2 Sundays ago, we had this conversation with our church, and I just asked our church, I said, we're at the point in the life of our church where we got to where we were because of the initial group of people that stepped up. And then I just told the storyline of our church. I talked about starting in our living room and how many people we had, and we prayed and we dreamed about this church that would impact our community. And then I showed a picture of the group the Sunday before we actually had our grand opening. And I said, that 30 people grew to this, 75 or what it was, of people that were committed before they even knew any of this would exist, or that many of you would even walk into this room. And lives have been changed. And now we baptized this amount of people. And I tell you what, those 70 people are running hard, and they've been running incredibly hard. And they've been carrying a torch into the dark world with really a sense of the unknown. And here we're at a point in the moment of our church where they're not going to stop running.
Yeah.
But they are dipping their torch to us, going, would you light your torch and follow me?
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that. So do you hear, a couple different things. So often we hear original launch team by 1.5 years, 2 years. Some of those people tend to drift or leave either because...
Yeah, about 50%.
So have you experienced some of that? And then the ones that have stayed, what do they, when they hear the 10%, are they, like, well, yep, we're the core, we're the committed, I'm one of the faithful 10. Or is like, man, I am a little tired, and I want to not create this consumeristic church where there's just a few people doing all of the work.
Yeah, I think you got to prime the pump with them ahead of time and help them reiterate, celebrate. Thank you, guys. We wouldn't be where we are without you. And every weekend you're serving, people's lives are being changed. And I don't want you, and so you got to set it up so they don't forget why they're serving in the first place. And it is easy to do when you get tired. Then I think beyond that, you challenge them to find and recruit the next person to come serve with them.
That's great.
And because the reality is that word of mouth, that personal relationship is the thing that will get people in the door. And so I always am constantly asking them, like, who's one or two people in your connection? Maybe you've gotten to know them in the last 2 months because they're dropping their kid off in your classroom every week and you really like them. Why not engage them in about what maybe they could give a day a month or a Sunday, an hour a month to serve in the children's classroom with you during that time period, or guest services or what, worship team, all that. Those people tend to stick. Yes, we've had some natural attrition, which you're going to have. Life happens, people move, relationships change. People realize it's not quite the church I thought it was going to be. I think, for instance, we had one of our top givers that came in probably about the 6-month mark and got all in. We're serving, we're engaged, that just left the church. And the reasoning was we didn't realize you were a church that were going to reach non-Christians. And we went, I don't know how you could have missed that because that's all we talk about.
Right.
And they said, well, is it going to change? I said, no, that's never going to change. And they literally like, we want a church that's just going to focus on Christians. I said, that's fine. That's not us. Yeah. And it was a real eye-opening for them in that moment. And we had to be at the place where, like, are you going to compromise your vision to keep my number 2 giver in the life of the church? Or is it okay to be able to say, hey, go bless another church. We appreciate the 6 months that you gave us.
You should have convinced them you can go somewhere else, but if you could just send your tithes back.
I tried, but they weren't at that point ready to dive in there. Yeah. But when you challenge your people, you create that moment. You're hoping to mobilize them. Mm-hmm. If you mobilize them and you inspire them, you've got to have that next step right away. And that's where I find a lot of guys fall short. Like, most church planters aren't short on inspiration, but it's then making sure that next step and that the next step is very, very easy for them to take.
Can you give an example? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. So when I had this conversation with our church and talked to them about, hey, light the torch, come follow us. And here's what it means to partner. So I labeled 3 things. One is just pray, be a prayer partner, pray for our staff, pray for our leadership, pray for God's wisdom and great opportunity to continue to reach our community. So number 2, be a volunteer, partner with us in volunteering. And then what we did as next step was, when you exit today, we have tables set up for the key areas of being able to serve in our life of our ministry. They also had a card that coordinated each one of those tables that gave them a little bit of information. And then we found the person that was kind of like the face of that area of ministry, where they would realize, oh yeah, I see that person every Sunday when I come in. I didn't realize your guest services. Okay. And then we just challenge them, like, stop by every table and just get to know somebody, and pray about it, figure out a spot for you to be able to serve. And then we're keeping those tables out for 2 more weeks after that. And we'll reiterate it and engage it. Week 1, we had over 50 people sign up to volunteer for the first time.
Wow, that's great.
And the excitement of it, like, we actually shut the service down 10 minutes early, didn't do a closing song and that kind of stuff. So we gave people time and we told them, your children are fine. Mm-hmm. Don't worry. Don't go get your kids right now. You've got 10 minutes just to sit and engage and talk and find a good spot. I can't tell you how many people I had walking out going, Pastor, I'm going to serve on the guest services, or I'm going to serve on the worship team. And they were just excited to have an opportunity to be a part of what we were doing on our mission.
That's really great. I want to chime in here so that people hear this again, because I think this is really, really important. You made it a part of the service, yes, and even the actual sign up as part of the service by taking something else away. In comparison to, if you're interested in serving, come back at 3:00.
Exactly.
We'll give you free pizza. Okay, well, I don't need to
Cold
come back.
pizza,
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
give you, crappy pizza and that you have to drive back. So you actually made it part of the service, and you have the initial vision excitement that can translate right into that time. And for all, if they came to church, and most people have their plans afterwards, okay, and then I'm going to stop at Home Depot, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going over to Aunt whatever's house. So it's like, you've already said, man, we already know we've got you from this time to this time. So I'm going to put it right into there. So I just think that that's huge. I want everyone to kind of hear, and not saying that that's the only way that you can do it, but anytime you're asking people to stay longer from what's already in their expectation in their schedule, and definitely the whole coming back thing is also difficult. The other thing I'd say too is that you set it up in the hall with a kind of non-threatening booth style in comparison. I know there's a lot of stuff with like the growth track and, where it's like, we're going to bring you to this room and you're in this like closed room for 30 minutes, an hour, or you don't even say how much time you're going to be there.
And you can't get out.
You can't get out, or you look weird. Where this is kind of like, hey, it's a fair. You're going by, and you know what? Whatever I do not want to go by the children's table. I only want to go by this one. Or the other person that wants to go to every single booth, then they kind of have that choice. You're creating this freedom, and so I think that's
great.
We
made sure every table looked the same, but we had balloons. We made it look nice and made it look appealing. Made sure very warm people were at all the tables, and then we even incentivized it. We told people, like, if you sign up just to engage a conversation about serving in an area, we're going to give you a ticket, and then we're basically doing a drawing out of all the names that did that. And we just told them, like, yeah, it's a bribe, but none of us are against that either. So
make it fun.
Yeah, make it fun. And so people got to walk away with different free items and things of that sort.
Can I ask, how did you prepare the people at the tables? I know you said you wanted to make sure you had your best people there, but how? Because I know that leaders of teams, sometimes they feel desperate, and so they're like, no, please, like, I am begging you. So they go right to the begging part. How did you
I just told them, share their story, why they serve week in and week out, what they love about their area, and just invite them to join you in that process, and adamant, like, the goal is to get them just to experience what it means to serve. And it may not always be in your area of ministry, but it may be, you have no idea. This could be a future elder. This could be a future this. This could be a future pastor, missionary. You just don't know. This is a beginning work of what God may be doing in their life. And so invite them in and just have fun with it, with them. Be you. Try not to be somebody else. You don't need to oversell them. I already took care of inspiring them. But then the biggest thing was the follow-up was probably the biggest coaching piece. Was you have 48 hours to follow up with each person that signs up in your area of interest. And it needs to be personal. I don't mind if you send them an email, but you have to have a personal connection within that 48 hours, meaning you call them or you text them. And based kind of read who they are and what their personalities are, but they need that personal connection point. That was a requirement. Like, that was a must, and coaching them through what's the next step. Invite them to just serve with you so they can see what it looks like. So guest services, like, hey, why don't you just come to our morning huddle? We have a morning huddle at 8:45. You get to hear a little bit of where we're going with the day, and then we'll actually focus in on guest services. That's a great opportunity to meet the team and just see a little bit of behind the scenes, all the different aspects of what we do on the guest services team. Very non-threatening again, and but it's building relationship, and the relationship is what keeps people serving.
Yeah, that's great. Now, did you see any uptick in giving, or is that too early to kind of see, or any people said, no, I've never actually been challenged?
It's a little early to tell. We had a little bit, and we'll see over time. But that was the third piece we asked them to partner with us, was be a financial partner. And then we just describe what that means. It means if you're giving nothing, we said, would you give something? If you're giving something, would you become a significant giver, meaning become percentage? So you said it, and you just have to even walk them through it. That means, hey, maybe 2% of your income you're setting aside. And then we said, third would be, if you're significant, consider becoming a tither. And I defined what it means to be a tither. And I said, hey, let me talk to you if you're a tither. What would it look like to go beyond that and become a sacrificial giver? And I said, I'm not as worried about the amount of money that's coming in as I want to see how many people are participating on our mission and supporting the mission financially. And so we count giving heads, and I update them on a quarterly basis. Hey, this is where we were last quarter. Here's where we are this quarter. And we celebrate it when we see an increase in how many people are participating and supporting our for us financially in the mission. And sometimes you have to even be more prescriptive with your people, where you got to kind of read them. I'm going to do that this week. So I set them up with a broader stroke. I'm going to get more prescriptive this Sunday and just talk about, hey, what we need 10 families that would increase their giving by $50 a week. Like, that's what I mean when I say prescriptive, to make up the difference of kind of where we're at and where we need to be.
Cool. Well, I think we should do maybe a whole podcast on just talking about just increasing giving, because I think we got a ton of stuff there on the volunteering stuff, very concrete ideas. I think we could do some more with some giving stuff.
Fantastic. Friends, it's been fun having real conversations about church world and church planting. This has been the Unfiltered Podcast. Until next time, keep it real.